When you do birth preparation, there is a climax, a moment which is the peak of doubt, which every woman experiences. There's a moment where she says, I don't know, I won't be able to give birth. I don't want to give birth anymore. I can't do this, where you go into that level of doubt. And that's the moment when they prepare the partner, where they say, you need to support her. And that's the moment where you need to be there. And the entire team knows that. So same for you. We all in our projects have moments where we are like, okay, let's just give up. This is too much. I won't be able to make it happen. I'm done. Like really this giving up energy. I'm not able. And as interesting as it is, it happens very close to the moment where you're actually going to make it happen. It's like this very intense energy in the other direction. It's like the mountain. You need to go over the peak and then it goes down and then you can slide down. But you need to go over that moment. Welcome to the inner space. This is for you if you need encouragement to be more yourself and explore your own path. Maybe because you feel different, too sensitive, or just not able to do things as everyone else seems to. There is a way, and it's your unique way. I'm Gloria Jensen. I am a coach, a healing artist, and a surfer. I am here to help you ride the waves of life, work, and business to find that deeper alignment with your creative and sensitive soul. If this feels like you, I invite you to know yourself better, feel all the emotions, and trust yourself, so you experience the freedom and fulfillment of being and doing you. Subscribe now to catch the next wave to the inner space, where authenticity sets you free. This episode is part 2. It goes hand in hand with the episode where I talk about my birth preparation. Now I'm going to talk about my birth experience. And I highly recommend you to listen to the episode before so that you understand how you prepare for birthing a new project or a new chapter in your life. And now you're going to understand how you deal with then the experience you're having. And maybe you are already in the phase of experiencing this new project and how you need to adapt and adjust. That's what I'm going to share about today. If you're in the preparation phase, really listen to the first part so you ask yourself the right questions. And as you will hear, if you haven't listened to it or you have heard in part 1, I really share about how much I've gotten support. And this is something I'm going to emphasize today again, but I would not have been able to have the experience I'm going to share about today without support. I'm pretty sure when I say I worked in the preparation phase with different people so that I could face my fears, work around my beliefs, do all the work before. Because there is something that is said is when a woman gives birth, if she hasn't done the work before, the birth in itself is going to stop, start again. Things are going to shift. And during the birth process, like emotions are coming up, questioning, doubts, so many things are coming up, almost as if as a mother, we need to let go, work through things in that very moment so that the birth can happen. Of course, every woman is different. Some might say, oh no, it didn't happen at all for me, for my birth. That's fine. It's another way. But for many women, there are things coming up. Maybe it's like suddenly during the birth, you're like, I'm afraid of my partner going away once the baby is there. Or there is a last question you need to ask to your partner. Like, what do we do if that happens? Like, are you going to support me if this happens? Or there is something, a relationship, I don't know, with your dad, with your mother that comes up, or your own story. And it's almost a purging or liberation happening so that the birth can happen. This is a quite crazy process when you think about it. I didn't know about it before engaging into my own birth preparation and all of that. But this is key, I believe, on how things unfolded for me as I gave birth, because I had done so much work before. I was super prepared. Funnily, like I had a friend who was going to give birth and she hadn't prepared anything. And she told me, wow, you seem to have been quite prepared. And my husband was saying she was an encyclopedia. She knew so much. Yes, she knew a lot. And that's typically also my design. I could almost give a program, I believe, around that. Because of all the knowledge I've acquired and the experience I've made. But for now, this is not the goal. But it shows you I really aligned also with my design, because maybe your design is not so much into acquiring all that knowledge and understanding before. You might have a different way of moving, and that you can discover it if you wish through a human design reading that I offer. I will put the link in the show notes. It's a very insightful experience that you can book with me. So let's go back. I've prepared for the bath. As I ended last episode, I believe you only wanted one thing: to hear the next story. And the story is we come closer to the birth month. I remember we both with my husband were like, we need one more week to put everything in place so that we are then more serene with just welcoming our baby boy. And this didn't happen. I have my own business, so I had to prepare so much, but I hadn't finished when it started. So we are Sunday. I'm swimming in the morning. We have a swimming pool we had for the entire building where I lived. Ideal when you're pregnant. And I was swimming, and I told to my husband, I believe he turned again. I had felt like while swimming how he turned into the belly. Shit, I believe he's again head up, because I had told you in part 1 of this episode, we had a breech baby. So head up, and this is a problem, especially I would say in the US, but also more and more in many countries where they are super scared about breech birth. It's not the norm, of course, because it's only a very low percentage of 3-4% of births. And they don't want a baby to come out physiologically being breech head up. That doesn't feel safe for, I was going to say 99% of the professionals. That's just my statistics, so don't take it as the exact number, but I would say as the big majority of professionals. I'm here in the swimming pool. I'm like, okay, he turned again. I guess, I'm not sure. The day went on, and suddenly in the evening, around 7 and 8 p.m., I lose water. I was like, did I broke the water? What's happening? Is it the mucus plug who just went away? What's happening? My husband went blank. His face was like, no, is this happening now? And I was like, okay, let's call the midwife, tell her. And he was like, oh no, probably it's just a mucus plug, which is something that doesn't mean you are going to give birth in the hours later. It can still last days. And I had a few contractions, but then she said, does it keep on going? I was like, no. So okay, we are fine. My husband says, okay, I told him, can you just buy a few things that I need? And he went to the supermarket. And during that, I was like, the contraction started again. I started using the app we share with the midwife where she can see the contraction live. This is going to happen in the next hours. My husband came back, was like, hey, I have it news. The contraction started again. The baby's coming. I had called the midwife and my doula. They told me, okay, just relax, eat if you can, and sleep as much as you can, because it's your first baby. It will take some hours. And we are at home birth. If you've listened to the episode before, it was planned like this. My husband, as I told you, first, was not into it and still doubtful, but he decided to join me on the journey. But I still was afraid of if he would support me. I had my doula, my midwife, and I felt with them, I really felt safe. So everything goes on. Everything happens exactly as I knew, because as I told you, I'm someone who prepares, but it's really in my design to get information, to understand, acquire all the knowledge so that I can move safely. And I knew exactly what was happening. I was like, okay, this just happened. Okay, perfectly. You are moving towards giving birth. I had prepared mentally and emotionally all my mindset to reframe the sensation of pain, breathing in, breathing out. I had used every moment before birth where I experienced pain to challenge my own perception of pain in my body. So let's extend my perception. Let's welcome the pain. And for those who have already worked with me around emotions, because that's one of my specialty, they know that I'm already working like that with emotion. It's like when you feel an emotion, I will tell you, welcome it. And all the work, I just extended it into pain management. I say adjust. I extended it. It doesn't mean that it was not hard, huh? But I was super focused on my plan and on just being in the moment. I managed to be just with every contraction. What they tell you is like, don't imagine the next contraction coming. It's going to come, but relax and just breathe in and out when you have this break where it's not painful. And I managed to do it. And it's the same with our own life projects. It's like, oh, tomorrow I have this, or just if you can stay as much as possible present in the step you are right now in your project. And tomorrow is going to be tomorrow. The next step is going to be the next step. But right now I am present with the step I'm experiencing right now, and I'm moving as much as possible with it, even when it's hard. But as we say, giving birth is like every contraction brings you closer to your baby. And it's actually interesting as a sentence we could extend to when we are working around our own projects, like every contraction, which none of us wants to experience. And when I say contraction, it can be failure, or that's at least how we feel about it, fear, blockages. Okay, I move with it, welcome it. I don't stay into it, because then there are moments of breaks, even though sometimes you don't see them, but there are moments of breaks. Relax so that I can handle the next one with, again, a refreshed energy. You can imagine that during birth, like you have to adjust it, but still with a new energy. Things move on, but then we already have one first problem, which is there is meconium. I will explain you what it means, coming out from the water as well. And for me, I'm like, oh, meconium, it means it's green. And immediately when there is meconium, it means the baby pooed in the process, and it's very dangerous because he might swallow it, and then you need to have like respiratory services from a hospital, and my midwife can't do it at home. So that was the first step, like, what do we do? And there are different opinions around that, as with many things in life. But like, it's the life of our baby who is engaged. So what do we do? Do we go straight to the hospital, as it is mostly recommended, or do we decide to stay home? And my midwife said we can still do it at home, because sometimes nothing happens, but you need to be prepared for an emergency transfer of the baby after he's born. So there we started to feel the stress of, oof, first decision that is very impactful, first problem into brackets. I was like, okay, what do we do now? And that was first interesting point, because that was the first time my husband said, no, you had the vision of doing a home birth, we stay at home. Whoa, like, oh, now he's on board. I had been waiting for that for all the weeks and months before, as you have heard from my episode of the review of 2024. I highly recommend this episode. We don't care about the year, but it's really about not compromising on your desires. And also from the part 1 of this episode, where I talk about all the heated conversation we had around home birth, because he didn't want it, he didn't feel safe with it, which I perfectly respect and understand. But I had done so much research and work around that I knew that it was not true, that home birth can be safe. Of course, there are many criteria before planning a home birth so that it is safe, but I had checked them all, except the breech, baby. But let's come to that later. And in that moment, we didn't know for sure. I have to say that we didn't know for sure if his head was up. I had the sensation as I was swimming, but I didn't know. And I had actually forgotten to say it to my midwife, as I called her, which is super interesting and was good. You will know later on why. So we're like, okay, let's stay at home and we'll see what happens. The contractions keep on going, and actually the labor is going fast. And my midwife said, okay, are you sure? Do you want to go to the hospital? Do you want me to come? And in that moment, it was very hard because we had to take a decision. I was between contractions and said, think about it. I was like, how can I think about it? I'm like just so focused on the body physiological process. Whatever. We decided to do it at home. She said, okay, I'm coming very soon because you are really moving fast. She plans, we call the doula, we tell her to come. She's like, okay, I prepare things, I'm coming. It's a crazy job when you think about it. Like, it was 10 p.m. probably in the evening. I have so much respect for this work. It's a beautiful job, but so demanding. You leave everything and then your family, and they all have kids, and okay, let's go. We don't know for how many hours. Immense respect for that. And as my midwife comes home, I'm like, keep on going with the process, with the contraction becoming bigger and bigger, really moving with all the things that I had prepared before. And I would say I had forgotten many of the tools and the things we know we could use during birth, which is fine. But I had focused on one thing, is my breath. I was like, the most important thing is that my baby gets oxygen, so I'm going to breathe deeply. The midwife comes in and she checks and she's like, oh no, I think I felt the butt of the baby. Let me recheck. But then I had so much pain, of course, that I was like, I can't lie on the back. This doesn't work for me. I need to be on all fours, like on my knees. It's just impossible. But so we wait for the contraction to go. She checks again. She's like, yes, confirmed. The baby is breached. Head up. You need to go to the hospital. Emergency transfer. Whoa. She asked my husband to call 911, and he's like completely in freeze state. He doesn't even know how to make a call. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to call 911. So she's like taking the phone, calling, managing everything. And the emergency comes, and they come super quickly. As they come, like my midwife tells me, Gloria, you have to know that a physiological breech birth is possible. And I had heard a podcast episode of 1 year before, or a few months before, about a woman telling that, but she had given birth in France. And you remember, if you have listened to part 1, I had so many beliefs around what is possible or not in the US. And I also read a book about it, which was super helpful, which confirmed me that, yeah, it's very medicalized birth, even though it's being more and more in other countries as well, but really a lot in America. So I was like, okay. She told me that. She said, Gloria, you have to know this is possible. I get into the bed, elevator with the contractions, and the guy from the ambulance tells me, so this is going to be a C-section. I'm like, okay. I didn't say okay, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that's going to be a leitmotif, you say in German, like a major red thread into all the story I'm going to tell is, and that's something I work around as a coach. That's something I encourage you to develop as you work with me, but beyond, as you listen to it right now, is understanding which are the energies in the space and where does the comment come from. And I knew this person was in the mainstream thinking, which is breech baby means C-section. Like, of course, that's how most of the people do it. But I knew breech baby can be done physiologically. So we move forward. I get into the hospital in the triage room, and they didn't want me to move out of this room because the triage is like you decide if you go into operation room or if you go into the birth section, like giving birth rooms, like we're going to say normal, not an operation. And they came in and said, we are going to do a C-section. I'm like, no, a breech baby can be born naturally. It doesn't have to be an operation. And they were like, no. The OBGYN, which was there, was like, no, this is going to be a C-section. I was like, no, I know it's possible. Like, I knew it's possible. I was like, maybe in the US it's not super common, but I knew inside of me, like, it can happen like that. My midwife had reminded me. Luckily, my doula came in quite quickly. She never came to our home. She actually went immediately to the hospital. And you have to imagine, again, that's happening between the contractions. So there are moments where I really cannot talk. And there started the dance. She really used words which are quite inappropriate, super strong. And I had the conversation with her and I was like, but do you do physiological breech births? Yes. I was like, oh, okay, so you can do them here. So like, no, only for mom who had already a few children. I was like, okay, but if you do it for moms who had already children, you can do it. It's possible, like you can do it. No, not for a mother who it's her first baby. Okay. And then I was like, but did you already give birth to a breech baby? Like, yes, but he was dead. I was like, nice. Okay. Which after you understand where her fears come from. And then I was like, okay, but is there anyone else who can do a breech birth in this hospital? No. which afterwards I'm like, there must have been other doctors. It's impossible. She was the only one in. I found out later, indeed, but she said no. And then you're in such a specific state, like it's not a state where you can argue and discuss so much. And then I said, okay, let us think, was the energy, let us think about it, and then we want to have a chat. But I was like, really, I want to go for natural birth. I don't want to go for a C-section because I know it's possible. She's like, do you want to decapitate your baby? Whoa. Imagine hearing that. Of course, no one wants to decapitate their baby. Like, it's one of the most precious things that is coming to the earth. Like, how would you want that? But in that moment, and I'm still impressed that it didn't affect me, but I was able to feel from which energy came her entire discussion. She was in fear. She was really in fear. That was all the words, all the questions came from fear. And I had decided to be into, I know I can trust my body and I can trust the baby. So it didn't really make me doubt in that moment. I was like, okay, I just know where she comes from. I know that most of the professionals are super scared about breech birth. I know I've made so many research. I know this is possible. I hadn't researched so much about breech birth, but my belief was if a baby comes head up, it's how he wants to be born. And he knows what he's doing. Like, nature doesn't create something that is not possible. So they come out, but still there were 7 people in the room, and then they started to come in and out every time. Like, you are in the US, so you need to sign something like a discharge saying, I take the responsibility for this. I give up my responsibility to claim if there is this problem. You can imagine that between contractions, you can't read any documents. So I was like signing in a crazy way. I was not signing, but just like a line. And they came in and, can you sign this and that? And like 30 documents. I don't know how many. I was like, this is absolutely crazy. At some point, my doula asked the teams if they can just leave us. Of course, I had all the things around my belly so they could check the baby was breathing. I had kept on focusing on one thing. Let's get some oxygen so that the baby's fine. And here you see again in your own project, like, who is this team supporting you and who is on your way, and from which energy does the questions, the comments come from? That's something you can ask yourself. Is it coming from a constructive energy? Is it their own fears coming up? And what would be a profitable energy for you to move forward with your own project? And in that moment, most of the doctors came out of the room. We were with my doula, and very luckily, my midwife, very nicely, she didn't have to come. She came as well. After from home, she joined me in the hospital with her birth assistant. So I had the 3 of them and my husband, which is actually not allowed because you can't have so many people in the room. But that was what happened. And we started to dim the light, like prepare everything for more physiological birth, where you have more intimacy, you just feel safe in their environment. And there, what happened is we started to, thanks to them, to shift the energy in the room. And I can tell you, I was really praying in that moment. I was like, support me. I was really putting all my my pillars, my roots into them in a certain sense, in the sense of like, really almost as you had a friend, I don't know, you have a problem with your feet and you would like put a hand or your arm around a friend's shoulder and just being supported by them. And I knew they were in the right energy for me. So I was like just focusing on their energy and not on the rest of the energy of the hospital team. Breathing in and out. Again, you see where yourself are you getting the support from, and even if it's one person, but you can always search for support. Like I told you, like all these people who were in the room except my husband, they were not part of my reality a few weeks, months before. So with them, I have the right support. They give me a new perspective. They can answer my questions, and they start to coach me actually into how really move. And they come in again, the other team of the hospital, and they want to move me to the operation room. And then I ask like, yes, okay, if you want to move me to the operation room, they say, just in case we need to do an emergency section. I was like, yes, but can my team come with me? Like my doula, my midwife, my husband. And they said no, only one person. So of course it would be my husband. And I was like, no, we don't move to the operation room if they cannot come with me. That was clear for me because I knew if I would be in the operation room, I was not again in the space and in the energy I needed. to move the support I had. So we said no. And I have to say that during the entire process, my husband, I told you, like, the first time I was at home and he said, let's do the home birth. I was like, ooh, he's into it. It kept on going through the entire birth. He was absolutely amazing in being a strong pillar against what some of the team members shared with us. And that's really one of his qualities, very assertive. And that was extremely helpful. So that's also to show you how sometimes people around us, especially who are super close to us, who are vital to a project happening, can also shift in action. Things can shift. But I had to open myself up to, I can make it without him, into brackets. I can make it happen. I stay with my vision and I move. And he joined, and in a very powerful way. When I tell you that, you might tell me, yeah, but I don't know, my partner, this person, my sister, I don't know, my mother, whoever is playing a key role, will not shift. Do the work on your side. Do the work on your side. Imagine how you can move also without that person, and then let's keep the door open to maybe things unfolding in a different way. So you get all the details. That's also my design. You are fully into the experience. You can imagine the adrenaline, the stress, all these things, but I'm still focused on breathing in, breathing out. And then there's a moment, we are still in the triage room. My husband said to them, if we need to go to the operation room, where is it? It was next door. It's like, I can push the bed. Like, it's like quite funny when you think about it. But in that moment, there's a moment which is not funny at all. Is I start to have such high level of contractions that I'm like, okay, and we come closer to the birth. Things are moving forward, and I'm like, maybe we should do a C-section. Maybe it's easier because the doctor feels safe. And 100%, we all had identified that the doctor was super scared by the breech birth because she didn't know how to do it. It's very different. And she didn't feel safe. I was like, whoa, Gloria, do you really want to give birth with a doctor who doesn't know how to do it? Who is in fear on the top? Because you can imagine doing that, which is already a kind of special birth, but with a doctor who's like, we can make it. But there was a doctor who said, we can't make it. And it's the main person you go to the hospital to get that support. Whoa. That was hard. That was really hard. And in that moment, I started to doubt. It was like, will I really be able? Should we go for the C-section? What do we do? And that's exactly the moment that is very well described when you do birth preparation. There is a climax, a moment which is the peak of doubt, which every woman experiences. There's a moment where she says, I don't know, I won't be able to give birth. I don't want to give birth anymore. I can't do this, where you go into that level of doubt. And that's the moment when they prepare the partner, where they say, you need to support her. And that's the moment where you need to be there. And the entire team knows that. So same for you. We all in our projects have moments where we are like, okay, let's just give up. This is too much. I won't be able to make it happen. Like, I'm done. Like, really, this giving up energy. I'm not able. And as interesting as it is, it happens very close to the moment we are actually going to make it happen. It's like this very intense energy in the other direction. It's like the mountain. You need to go over the peak and then it goes down and then you can slide down. But you need to go over that moment. And again, with support, it is possible. Without support, then you need to have an energy around you that is, I would say, at least neutral, but not the one I had with the hospital team. I needed to have a counterbalance with the energy of my team. And in that moment, again, my husband amazingly said, Gloria, if there is a problem, we are in the hospital, we can do an emergency section. You wanted to do that birth like this. He was like reminding me what my vision actually, what was so important for me, what I had worked on for months. My midwife, more the technical support, I talked with her and she heard me saying like, maybe let's go for the C-section. And neither the doula, the midwife told us you need to go for that. They told me if you want to do a C-section, that's perfectly fine, like amazing. Like they really gave me the option. But still, like I could talk through with people who were more neutral and in a better energy. Again, that's an insight for you. Like, who are you talking to? And is that energy at least neutral, non-judgmental, so that you can have space to feel yourself? That's exactly the kind of work I do. I never push you into a decision. I always bring it back to you to feel your own energy, be in a neutral, supportive space, so that you can take decisions that come from your most powerful self and not from the fearful self we all have. So in that moment, as I really doubt, it's so interesting because I remember being super lucid in that moment. I'm like, Gloria, this is crazy. You're working around decision making, which really has been a challenge for my entire life, to understand how I take decisions, what is the best decision. And sometimes I take more time. And now I know through my design what's aligned, that actually it's aligned also to take time. But it can also be sometimes too much time and you start to doubt. And in that moment, I'm like, so funny. Giving birth, here you are, you have to take a decision that has an impact on the potential life of your baby, because you never know how it ends up. I was like, oh my God, life, how crazy is life? Making you work on one of the important themes you have to move through to keep on going in your life in the right direction you want. I had told you like how birth is bringing things up for you. And it's the same even if you're a man or you're a woman who will never give birth, who doesn't want to, or just it can't happen. You have moments where you have to take difficult decisions, whether it's in your business, in your career, with your children, where you're like, oof, this is a big decision and this is going to have a big impact in my life. My midwife tells me, yes, you can do the C-section. It's perfectly fine. Just know that it's the easiest decision right now, but over time, you will have a longer recovery process than if you do it physiologically. And in that moment, it's so interesting because that was that voice. She reminded me and reconnected me to many things I had read, integrated, chosen. So it was, oh, wow. He really hold the mirror back to my vision. She as well as my husband, she did it with the professional knowing. And in that moment, it was like, oof, it was really like the thing that made me return back to my body and start to, again, be just fully into the decision of doing it physiologically. And she also said to us in the room, she said, you know what, we are just going to wait for the baby to come out. And once he's engaged, they cannot reverse it anymore, of course. And that's the moment where we are going to call them. And in that moment, I was like, okay, if that's a possibility, like to make it work, she couldn't intervene. She's not legally allowed to. They were just sitting in the room with me. I was like, okay, then I knew I could make it happen. So you see how the combination is coming back to your vision, coming back to your own trust, and all of that with people who remind you and support you with their knowledge, with their experience, with just their energy, to go back to your project, your vision, and your belief into the ability of making it happen. And then, funnily enough, the pain, I was going to say, was gone. All the hormones kicked in as I knew it was possible. And I was not anymore into pain. I was just there with the baby, and I started to work very intensely with him. I was a bit afraid of people coming from the hospital and interrupting the process, because it's fully possible. And so I was really talking to the baby and super connected to him. I was like, if you want to go out that way, because that's your decision, now you need to come out. Now you need to come out. Otherwise, it's like we have a time frame which is short. So now you need to come out. And I believe also it's a teamwork. So we worked together and he started to come out. And in that moment, of course, the monitors started to make weird alarm signs because they couldn't hear anymore the heart of the baby because he was moving out. And that was a bit crazy moment, because then they suddenly, all the team of the hospital came in and like, the baby's coming out, super stressful. The doctor was super, super scared. I couldn't see her because I was facing with my back. But she was so scared, she intervened, which she didn't have to. That's the only point where I'm like, he could have gone by himself out. For sure, we were working a beautiful work together. She intervened, and that's how it was. But still, then the baby came out, and I was like, wow. In that moment, I looked at my husband, was like, whoa, it worked out. Like, it worked out. And here you see the difference between the vision I had, the vision you might have for your project. For me, it was like doing a home birth with everything from the end till the end, where we can really do how I had seen it. Ideally, my husband would have used the scissors to cut the umbilical cord. I would have had the baby immediately on my chest and all these things, but that didn't happen because we were in the hospital. They were super scared. They didn't want to do it. Like the end was really crazy. And I didn't do a home birth. It was a hospital birth, but the vision was different. But still in the experience, I was able to stay in connection with the essence and making that happen in an environment that was really not easy. And this experience required an extra big level of self-trust. Because yes, I tell you a lot about the support I got, yes, but in the end, I was giving birth. So I had to be in my body, and I had really anchored the belief before the birth happening of my body knows how to give birth and the baby knows how to come out. And every time I was able to not be impacted, especially by the initial discussion with the doctor, because I was like, my body knows she's coming from here. But you know, this deeper trust into nature, into life. And that is much more powerful than one individual or many individuals saying their perspective, their views. They haven't created the word as one of the beings on this earth, as I am one of them. But if you connect to this deeper energy, which is the energy of life, of the earth, of the divine, if that's something you believe into, then you know there is something that is much wiser and much more powerful. I have chills as I share all of that. So ask yourself which energy I am connected to as I am preparing maybe the new chapter in my life, or as I am making happen this project. What's the energy you are connected to, and how can you come back to that deeper trust? And if I trust myself, if I am able to identify, oh, this person is coming from fear, if I'm able to deconstruct my belief, if I'm able to do all that work, it's because of everything that has happened before, the preparation, but also beyond the other things I've done in my life. You can also conclude from that experience that support is a key element. Support and knowledge as well, because it helped me to have all these signals to know, okay, I'm on the path. So having knowledge and the self-trust. For those who are like afraid of asking for support, who don't get enough support, this is a big reminder that things that you really want can happen with support in an easier way or quicker, or just can happen. Because I don't know how it would have gone if I would not have had my team in the room and my amazing husband. That's the experience, and that's now a story. That's one of the rocks I build myself upon around my self-trust. I'm like, wow, you managed to trust yourself in a moment where you had a lot of opposition. You managed to make happen your vision, not as you had it. So that shows you also the flexibility we need to have around, we have a vision, but then it rarely happens exactly as we want it. And that's another belief. I had a friend who did actually exactly the vision I had. She did a home birth at home. Everything went as smoothly as it can in the water, like really exactly the vision I had. And before giving birth, she told me, in the end, you're going to have the birth you are meant to have. And that's a belief I have. And I say that also for maybe women who haven't been able to give birth as they wanted, who might have had a traumatic birth, because that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. I knew so much from so many stories that can happen. And maybe I'm going to give birth to another child and it's going to be not as I wanted. And that's again trusting the lessons and what's in there for us. And it's easy to say it generally, and it's easy to say it because I have another birth story. Though I trust again in this deeper rhythm and energy of life and our individual life, that there is something to learn for us, something to grow into. And as I was pregnant, I was working with different women, one who had also lost a child, and we learned a lot about what was on her path and her soul's path, what she had to learn through that experience. Here, it's also an invitation to Find the flower into your story, into this experience, however it has been. So if I summarize part 1 and part 2, what's your vision for your project? What do you want? What don't you want? When you do that, what are the beliefs that come up, the fear, the emotions generally that need to be released? What's the mind shift that needs to happen so that your project starts to form, to take shape more in the direction of your vision than of your negative vision, I would say, what you don't want to see happening? How are you surrounding yourself? Who have you hired next to you to make that happen? Do you have a community around you? Because that was what I had, not just one person. And then as it is happening, how much can I go back to this deeper, more powerful trust into life, into nature, into your own beliefs, even when you face oppositions from different directions? And if there is like blockages, things that happen for me, I still had after the birth, because she had intervened at the end, the doctor, and things didn't end up really at the end exactly how I had desired it. I had also to work around forgiving her intervention and trusting that also was correct for the baby and for me, and that was part of it. So accepting as well and healing emotionally what needs to be healed. Trust yourself. This is a big key to creating the life you desire. It's easier said like this, but I can tell you this is just a sample of the kind of work I do to trust myself. But there is a path to trust yourself more. And if you want to work with me, I'm going to help you gain this self-trust by a deep self-understanding, self-knowledge, so that you can move more in alignment with your energy, have many different experiences in your life, even smaller ones, that show you that you can trust how you operate, move with it, and then you will have more and more confirmations in your life that with self-trust, you are the most potent decision maker, the most powerful person to make it happen. Tell me how this episode landed. I would love to hear. Have your feedback, share it with anyone who needs to hear that. And thank you for listening to this episode, being on that journey with me. And I see you very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining the inner space. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need exactly this encouragement. And until next time, keep exploring your inner space, where authenticity sets you free.